am so happy to be here today in front of all of you after watching so many amazing TED Talks right here at SRDS by brave students and adults. It is really hard being up here, seeing all of you looking at me.
Public speaking is kind of stressful.
And, I feel like when it's something that I'm really passionate about, I tend to put more pressure on myself. So what do I do when I feel stressed and overwhelmed? I think about bees. Why bees? It's kind of a funny story. It's something that I tell students when they're anxious about a test, something I've told colleagues when they're freaking out about teaching through a pandemic, and even my soccer team when we needed a powerful team name. Everyone needs something to believe in, something to push us through hard times and pull us through difficult situations, something that might be bigger than us and that we might not even understand. For me, it was something I witnessed when I was in my early 20s, and I have never been the same since. So I've always been interested in the news. Growing up, my mom worked for one of the top national newspapers, and my dad has always read several papers a day from all over the country, so many that they'd be draped over our entire kitchen island. They still send me clips of things that I might be interested in. And when I'd wake up in the morning, I watch the local news, and at night, usually I read or watch the news. I know that it's hard sometimes to take the headlines that are put in our faces, but I think it's important to know what's going on in our communities, our country, and in the world. So the summer after I graduated from college, I took my first big job in video production, and it was stressful, and I put in long hours, and I was trying to learn the ropes, and I was nervous every day, and I took a 3-day weekend to go see a friend in Brooklyn. It was a Friday morning. She was getting ready for work, and I was watching the local news, getting ready and excited to explore New York City, when all of a sudden the in-studio anchors announced breaking news, and they cut to a young female reporter standing on the side of some highway. I don't remember where exactly she was, but I remember it was 7 a.m., it was rush hour, and it was a beautiful sunny day. She was calm, she was cool, she was standing there doing her thing, and she announced that a truck had tipped over and was on the side of the highway. Now, trucks get into accidents all the time, right? And sometimes they tip over. This truck was different. This truck was carrying bees, and those bees were unleashed on New York City. So the reporter said the driver of the truck was okay, but that bees were escaping and the rush hour traffic is backing up. Okay, you're imagining this? All right. Her report lasted only a minute or so. They cut to another story. And when they came back to her for an update, this time, the reporter was not so calm. She was in a different place, further from the truck, backing away. And you could see a swarm of bees flying into the nearby forest. Okay? There was a sense of urgency in her voice as emergency crews were scrambling to figure out what to do. And I watched those police officers who were there, and I thought about it, and I thought, I don't think they trained for this kind of scenario at the police academy. So they were showing up in makeshift bee gear, so they looked like gladiators going into a battle, but instead of armor, they had reflective raincoats, and instead of shields and weapons, they had kitchen pots and pans and strainers. They were just doing what they could. And they did not look like this. They were not prepared. After a commercial break, the reporter was now narrating from a news van. She was no dummy. She was way far away, narrating from the news van. And the camera went from a very wide shot, slowly zooming into the scene, closer to the truck, closer and closer, until I saw the firefighters were using flamethrowers to set the bees on fire. I was watching the people who were supposed to protect us and put out the fires, now incinerating and killing those innocent bees. It was surreal, it was jarring, and it has stayed with me ever since. I saw thousands of bees on fire, going into the woods, setting the trees ablaze, and things went from bad to worse as the firefighters had to extinguish now the bees. They're making the problem much bigger. They had to extinguish the fiery bees and the fiery trees with foam to neutralize them. So now we had a few minutes of bees still on fire, angry and foaming, and they kept flying. After the chaos died down, I thought about how such a small insect could be so impressive. Not only do they have the power of flight, but those little wispy wings carry so much weight, so much more weight than they should. And they are responsible for pollinating 75% of our global crops. Here's a list of just some of the foods that bees are responsible for pollinating. A hive of bees will fly 40,000 miles. That's equivalent to once around the Earth, just to collect 1 pound of honey. They do good work. The bee's wings beat at 250 cycles per second. That's creating that signature buzz sound. So I got back to work the next week, and the usual stress returned, and we had all these crazy things going on, crazy projects, but I noticed something inside me had changed. Instead of getting sucked into the craziness, I somehow felt this strange sense of calm. And I couldn't help but think that it was somehow connected to those bees. Calm. Those bees who were burning and kept going no matter what. They put up quite a fight, and they never doubted their path or purpose. Their perseverance, even in the most extreme conditions, really inspired me. My coworkers also noticed the change. They wondered how, when they were dealing with deadlines and impossible budgets, how I could stay so calm. So I told a few of my coworkers about the Bees on Fire story. And I said, no matter how crazy things get or how things get so intense, at least you're not a bee on fire. They would laugh. And then after a while, we kind of all collectively figured out that somehow the bees were kind of getting us through some stressful situations. The whole experience further fueled my fascination with bees, and I continued to do some more research, and I found some distressing news. Despite their incredible will to live and survive, the US honeybee population decreased 40% in both the 2018 and 2019 winter seasons, and that's something that experts are calling unsustainable. Without bees, ecosystems would fall apart and our food sources would greatly be affected. There's this famous quote, if the bee disappeared off the face of the earth, humans would only have 4 years to live. The 4-year estimate might not exactly be accurate, but you can't doubt that if the bee disappears, things collapse. Those bee colonies collapse, our food sources would greatly be affected. Bees would also just likely be the beginning because they're the center of all of it. Mother Nature already has pollination figured out. All we have to do is get out of the way. Bees are incredible insects that fly great distances to do their part in pollination. So if they can fly, why are we transporting them in trucks? Well, I looked at that too. The reason is because it's a big business. Farmers who live in areas without enough bees to pollinate their crops need to rent out bees, and there are professional pollination services who move thousands of bees around the country several times a year so that they can serve crops. So it's been a while since the Bees on Fire experience, and every time a truck carrying bees tips over and it's covered by the news, someone I know sends me the link or tags me in the post. No, really, it happens all the time. Like every couple of months or so, I get a bees truck tipped over link. Hear more. It happens everywhere. So if this is happening, why aren't we protecting our bees? They're our precious cargo. Why aren't we doing more? And why is it happening? It could be due to more trucks carrying bees because farmers need them because in their area, there's a decline of local hives. So I'm not a professional beekeeper. I don't know how to prevent trucks from tipping over, but I know that there are a few ways that we can all help save our precious bees. What can we do? We can do a few small things to support bees and just help the decline go the other way. You can plant a bee garden. One of the greatest threats to bees is that they don't have a place to build a habitat and find a variety of food sources. So if you plant a garden, even if it's just in a little planter or window box, they have those food sources that they need to provide pollen and nectar. You can create a bee bath. There's one in our courtyard right there. They work up a thirst foraging and collecting nectar, and all you need is a shallow bowl or a bird bath with clean water, a few rocks or stones so that it breaks the water surface, and the bee lands on the rock and takes a refreshing drink, and they're off to do more work. You can also volunteer to help enrich public and shared spaces. There are great organizations like the Saddle River Garden Club or the Mawa Environmental Volunteer Organization who would welcome youth volunteers. Bees are majestic creatures that play an essential role in our ecosystem. They're industrious, they're complex, and above all else, they're resilient. When I need to muster up some extra strength if I'm dealing with stress at home or at work, I think about the bees I saw on the news that day. The humans did a good job to try to resolve the situation, but it was really those little bees that fought through and showed me that resilience is important. They were disoriented, they were aflame, and they were foaming, and yet they kept flying through layers upon layers of adversity. We humans are quick to reach for solutions. We've been problem solving for thousands of years, but for all of those great solutions, sometimes we're responsible for foolish quick fixes, like setting a bunch of bees on fire. When we find ourselves in a frenzied panic, like when international tensions rise, or we have crazy deadlines at work, or we're worried about friends or grades or standing here giving a TED talk, some of our hastier solutions tend to create more problems. So instead of throwing fire on my problems, I pause and I breathe and I try to move with the universe rather than against it. We humans, like the bees, are very resilient. When in doubt, it helps to remember to keep flying and always have something to believe in. Thank you.